Ashram, welcome to this evening's programme.
First tonight, the mother of murdered schoolgirl Stacy Lawrence has spoken of her terrible loss and her hatred for the man who killed her daughter.
Roxanne Lawrence described Stacy as a fun, artistic and clever little girl. Detectives are still trying to unravel why Mrs Lawrence's boyfriend, Darren Walker, murdered Stacy before hanging himself.
Well, Matthew Hudson has been following the story and joins us now. Matt, another difficult day for Stacy's mother.
Yes, indeed. I mean, unless you've been in the position, I'm sure it's impossible to know what it feels like to be the mother of a murdered child coming to the place where they were killed, particularly perhaps if they were taken from you by somebody that you knew and trusted. But that's exactly what Roxanne Lawrence did this afternoon, accompanied by another daughter and by members of Northamptonshire Police. She came here to the services at Warmington in Northamptonshire to see exactly where it was that her daughter Stacy died. Roxanne Lawrence, with her daughter Emma Hammond, travelled from the West Midlands to this service station near the village of Warmington in Northamptonshire, where police are still struggling to fathom why her partner Darren Walker strangled 9-year-old Stacy before hanging himself.
Realising that she's never going to come home and we're never going to talk and we're never going to go shopping and she's never going to grow up and have her own children. I'm never going to be the zookeeper she wanted to be. Just hard to bear, really.
It was no small thing for Roxanne to come here today to face the media. The police tell me she was extremely nervous preparing for it, but she wanted the opportunity to pay tribute to the daughter that she's lost, and she also hopes that someone out there may yet be able to shed light on just why these tragic events unfolded the way they did. Yesterday, police released these CCTV images taken at I-Services near Peterborough on Friday afternoon. They show Stacy and Walker buying dinner. Hours later, Stacy was dead, yet the pictures and evidence from her family give no clue that anything was wrong. Police say they don't believe Stacy was the victim of a serious sexual assault before she died, but they believe some sexual touching did take place. Walker strangled her, then hanged himself in nearby woodland. Officers have been dredging through his past looking for clues. It's known he was cautioned in 2006 for assaulting his then-wife. Another woman has claimed he made advances towards her when she was just 15.
I hate him for what he's done to her.
He's murdered her at the end of the day. How would you feel about it?
Friday morning, I loved him. Nah, I was hating for what he's done. But the man that I loved is not the man that did this. Like, you know, this isn't the man we knew who did this. But obviously the man that did this is an animal, a beast.
Nearly a week on, and it's still not possible to say why this apparently happy little girl was killed by a man she trusted.
Matthew, so many unanswered questions. Are the police any closer to discovering why this happened?
Well, for the sake of Stacey's family, one would certainly hope so. And certainly the police are putting a lot of resources into this investigation. If this was crime fiction, I'm sure all of the loose ends would be sorted out. But, you know, in real crime, sometimes we don't get to understand fully why events turned out exactly the way that they did. And tragically for Stacey's family, at the moment at least, the indications are that this could well be one of those cases.
That's for now. Thank you very much. Well, other news, in the budget airline Easyjet has announced plans to cut the number of its flights from Luton Airport by 20%.
It says the high costs at Luton mean it's cheaper to redeploy some aircraft and staff to continental Europe. Up to 100 jobs could be at risk. Well, Emma Baker has this report.
It used to consider Luton its spiritual home, but now some of Easyjet's flights are flying the nest. Today it announced it's cutting its flying programme at the airport by 20%, putting up to 100 jobs at risk. It blames the airport's rising charges, which the airline says have gone up by 25% in the past 3 years.
very sad about today's announcement. Luton is the home of EasyJet. It's where we started 14 years ago, and Luton Airport ought to be growing. It's well located in a busy part of the UK. The taxpayers have spent tens of millions of pounds widening the M1 motorway, building a new spur road into the airport. So Luton ought to be growing, but it can't grow unless it's got a competitive cost base.
Today's announcement will cost jobs. 530 EasyJet pilots and cabin crew are employed at Luton. 100 of these positions could now be cut. A huge blow to the airport that was the first to host EasyJet back in 1995 and remains one of the company's largest bases, with 16 aircraft flying 4.7 million passengers a year. Along with reducing flights at Luton, EasyJet also plans to close its East Midlands base and slightly reduce crews at Stansted Airport, along with Belfast, Bristol and Newcastle. The airline says it expects to move its aircraft to more profitable airports, mostly in mainland Europe. Luton Airport has described today's announcement as regrettable and insists the commercial terms are highly competitive. It adds it will continue to work closely with EasyJet in the future.
EasyJet has now entered a 90-day consultation period with its crew here at Luton. It says it will try to minimise job cuts and transfer staff to other airports where possible. But that will come as little consolation to staff working for EasyJet here at Luton, who now face an uncertain future.
And they are not alone. Hundreds of people across Luton rely on the airport for a living.
This summer was really quiet. Obviously it's going to be more quieter.
The work has gone worse as it is really. No one's taking holidays anyway, and EasyJet, they stop it as well, and it's going to be pretty bad really, yeah.
Obviously it's going to hit the trade a lot, innit? So a lot of drivers are going to suffer, so...
Today's announcement comes as yet another blow to Luton's economy, at a time when the town can least afford it. Emma Baker, Anglia News, Luton Airport.
There have been tributes today to Lord Buxton, one of the founders of Anglia Television and a pioneer of wildlife programme making.
Lord Buxton, who lived at Stiffkey, died at his home in North Norfolk at the age of 91. He made the first survival series in 1961. It was only meant to have 6 programmes, but was so successful that more than 500 were produced over the decades ahead. Natalie Gray has this report.
He was one of the founding fathers of Anglia Television, the man whose vision brought the series Survival to television screens around the world. A promoter of wildlife and conservation,
foxes are often seen pillaging in dustbins around Hampstead Heath, and the fox is a fascinating example of the way nature survives in the great man-made jungle of London.
And a war hero who won the Military Cross. Aubrey Buxton, later Lord Buxton, was all of these, and today there were many tributes to his life and work.
He was always known to all Anglia people as AB. It didn't matter whether he was Aubrey Buxton or later Lord Buxton. He was a very energetic man. We didn't see an enormous amount of him, and that was the great thing. He was very discreet. He tended to know most people's names, and if he didn't know them, he was always very friendly.
Born in 1918, Aubrey Buxton was part of the group that set up Anglia Television in 1958. 3 years later, the Survival series was launched. The programme became an international hit, winning dozens of awards for its pioneering portrayal of life in the wild.
The very first film that he made in East Anglia for Survival was about avocets. And at the time, little black and white waders, at the time that was the rarest breeding bird in Britain. They hadn't nested here for 100 years, they'd been shot out. This year, in his own garden, he had over 100 avocet chicks actually flew. And this is as a result of his own personal interest in birds.
With his friend Sir Peter Scott, he founded the World Wildlife Fund. Lord Buxton lived for many years in Essex, where he was High Sheriff and a Deputy Lieutenant of the county. He later moved to Stiffkey in Norfolk, where he worked tirelessly to promote and improve the local wildlife habitat.
Norfolk is in the Premier League for wildlife conservation, and, you know, he's part of putting us there, and he was such a big character that we owe him a huge debt of gratitude.
As Chief Executive and later Chairman of Anglia TV, Lord Buxton also became Chairman of ITN. The father of 6 children with his first wife, he is survived by Lady Buxton, Kathleen Peterson. Lord Buxton was quite the man. His TV and conservation work are well documented, but he was also an author, a watercolourist and a friend to the royal family. A Thanksgiving service will take place in the next 6 weeks, following a private funeral service in the next few days.
Tributes there to